Good afternoon. I'm John Falchicchio, Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. I'm laughing because I'm next to a tree. And we're here at the Eaton Hotel in downtown DC. We wanted to talk to you today about Reopen and where we are and hear from a couple industries, hospitality, restaurants, as well as those who work in offices, just to talk about the return to work. So we started a return to work campaign this month. And that continues. So we'll hear a little bit from Sabang Cook about how that's been going and some of the special incentives that we've had in place, some treats that we've had for visitors and workers to the downtown. But we also wanted to talk to you a little bit about where we are in the reopen. So as you know, as of last Friday, many of our businesses were able to open with pre-pandemic protocols in place. So all those restrictions that we had in place during the during the pandemic have been lifted in favor of really a focus on vaccination. So today, DC Health announced an opportunity for organizations as well as employers to reach out to DC Health to do vaccine clinics with those organizations or in those places of work. So if you look on the coronavirus.dc.gov website, you can find all the information about how your organization or your employer can sign up and meet or be matched with, I should say, providers of vaccine and be able to do it right on the workplace. It's something we've been doing through the last few weeks, but we can broaden it now as we get further into the vaccination process. So with that, I want to bring in our first panel, including my guest co-host, Sabang Cook, who serves as the Director of Business Development for DMPED. Sabang, thanks for being here with us.
Always excited to be here with you.
And also our host for today, Sheldon Scott, who's the head of purpose here at Eaton and is well known to the arts, cultural, and just everything that's cool with DC.
All the things.
Sheldon, did I get that right?
You got it right.
All right,
you got
good,
it right.
Good.
Thank you.
So first off, Sabang, why don't you lead us off just to tell us a little bit about what the team's been working on in terms of Reopen. And then I want to make sure that Sheldon tells us a little bit about how they've been navigating the pandemic.
Absolutely. Always, again, happy to be in the presence of a fantastic company. But as we talk about what's happening now, we have been in true fashion, like we've been doing the last 13 months, in collaboration with our external stakeholders and partners, thinking about what does returning back to the office look like? And how do we create a safe and welcoming environment as people begin to come back to the office? And companies and employers determine how they're going to define that for everyone. And so we wanted to make sure that we added another layer of comfort to that, thinking about what does that look like. So we've been working with our downtown bid, our bids across the city, in addition to the Washington, D.C. Economic Partnership, and a variety of other stakeholders to think about what does it look like for employers as people are coming back, employees, and what does that look like? And so what we've been talking about now is, if you haven't seen it, we have launched, we're going into week 4 now, of a Welcome Back DC campaign where you get your first cup of joe on Monday on us in the morning. And so we've been identifying different opportunities for employees when they come back to DC every Monday through this month, and now even going into June. From Monday to 8 to 11, you can walk into some of our participating coffee shops and get a free cup of coffee on us. And so far, we have 9 coffee retailers supporting us right now that we are happy that they're participating. Dua, Compass Coffee, Teaism, Astro Donuts, Swings Coffee, Zeke's, Shays Lily, Green Bee. Those are the coffee shops right now that are local coffee shops that are participating with us right now. So if you are coming into the office or participating in a WeWorks location or a Work2 location, these are places where you can get a free cup of coffee just by mentioning the Welcome Back DC campaign, and you will get a free cup of joe on us. On top of that, we've added another layer. On those days, we understand that a lot of employers are thinking about how employees come back 2 days on, 3 days off, or you're in the office on some days and you have non-office work days. There's another opportunity you may have heard or seen a couple of weeks ago, actually maybe a month ago. The Deputy Mayor introduced another company here that started here and based here, Work2. they create alternative workspaces for entrepreneurs, for employees, and the like. And so they are also a partner with us, and they are offering a free day pass. So if you go to Welcomeback.dc.com, you can sign up, click, and get a free day pass from Work2. And then you can also see the participating coffee shops as well to get a free cup of joe on us on Mondays. So we look forward to seeing you.
Outstanding. So Sabangwe, how has it been received? What have the coffee shops been saying, the roasters?
Oh man, I think they're really enjoying it. One roaster was so excited and moved by it. They were just, I mean, they had to express how pleased and how thoughtful they thought we were being and creating this opportunity to, number one, showcase these coffee shops as partners of ours. So that also means if they're grabbing a cup of joe on us, maybe they'll get a croissant or a donut or come back for lunch. And so we're really excited about that. So that's been exciting. Also, we have now, I think we're up to almost close to 850 cups of coffee that have gone out in just 3 Mondays. So that's pretty exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I know last Monday I was walking through Central Business District, and I actually saw like a group of team members kind of just meeting at one of our coffee shops, and they were probably maybe reconnecting again.
Absolutely.
For the first time. So I think this is kind of a tool just to really like ease people back into the office. And so Sheldon, you've been downtown this whole time here at the Eaton Hotel. We're at 12th and K Streets Northwest. So tell us, kind of walk us through, what was 2020 like, and then how have you seen it sort of change as we've come towards reopen here in 2021?
Yeah, so we spent 5 months in 2020 closed, shuttered. I think we shut down on April 15th, and then we came back to business in August. Everything was really tentative. We were really looking forward to, the kind of return that we're experiencing now, but hoping that it would be happening sooner. And, once we made that commitment in August, we stuck with it. Because we knew it was important to, our communities, both internal and external. People really rely on your workplace for so much more than just a paycheck. So we remain steadfast in that. And what we're really excited about now is, now that we are returning slowly but surely to pre-pandemic all around, because, we do have a bar here as well, too. So we do have some of those restrictions still left until June 11th. But what we're really excited about is, return of our community, return of people coming and using this space, because this is a purpose-driven business. We're not just a hotel. I think that was made eminently clear, too, because, we weren't necessarily just focused on transient populations, people coming from outside of D.C. It was very clear that D.C. as a community also looked to use this space. So it's very exciting to see all of those people returning and being back to business and just being vibrant. And, I think a lot of the what you're describing, with people returning for coffee and people sitting in coffee shops, a lot of ways that people are connecting physically and spiritually with this return.
Absolutely. And for those who don't know about Eaton DC, tell us, because you started to describe it. It's more than a hotel.
Yes.
Tell us about all the components.
So it's an impact hospitality brand, that's, mission driven. We are triple bottom line. We are governed by our principles around people, profit, and planet. As a part of our ecosystem, we have more than just heads and beds. We also have a collaborative workspace. We have 4 food and beverage outlets, a cafe, cinema, and Radical Library, a radio station that's community-based, as well as events and programming space as well here too. So, it's like when Captain Lowe founded this project, the vision was hotel as community center. So, that pushes us in a space where we have to have non-traditional venues in order to make that happen. So that's kind of what we are.
And so how important is it to have people wanting to meet again? And what timeline do you hear? I'm sure you're in conversation with customers, and they're probably trying to gauge when people are willing to come back. So how do you kind of explore that, and how do you get ready for when people want to meet again?
Yeah, I think what we are starting to see now is you see a lot of people who are interested in staycations, people who've been in their apartments now for a year and a half, probably with significant others, and they all need breaks, or they just need a different setting. So you're starting to see people who are saying, I would just love to take a vacation in my own town. I would like to experience DC through a different lens. And, I think one thing that we did, which I think really kind of shows the importance of like the design and layout of DC, we all became hyper local. When we were in our apartments, like, our ranges shrunk, from like going all across to like being able to operate everything within 5 blocks. And now people are thinking a trip to downtown is an extension. It's like, oh, I'm coming out of U Street. I'm going to hang out in downtown for the weekend. So we're starting to see a lot of that. And then, I think the most important part of that is like organizations, communities, and groups that are there to benefit the people who were most heavily impacted by this are starting to also be able to come together and reorganize and reinstitute a lot of their efforts, which we hope, because we realize that, as we're coming out of the pandemic, there's still people who are stuck with challenges. We have a lot of challenges that we see coming ahead and things manifesting. And so being able to create a space where those groups can come in and do that work. Yep.
And sorry about that. We're
That's
just,
all right.
It's live TV.
Ooh, yeah.
And
Whoa.
One of your space heaters was
Okay.
just
All right.
just making sure we were all being aware. And I want
Exactly.
to just to prove that the nightmare exists.
Exactly.
Sean Townsend saved the day. So very excited
Once again,
to have Director Townsend. And I was actually
give it up for Sean.
I was actually going to ask you too about sort of how you talked about how people are approaching sort of like how they think about sort of where they go, right? And even I find that myself. Like I'm like, well, maybe I'll go somewhere in my neighborhood instead of going somewhere all the way like somewhere other neighborhood in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important that we start stretching out a little bit more. How have you seen it in terms of like people in the restaurant space and things like that? Are they staying as late? Are they really enjoying now that we're reopened, all that we've reopened?
Yeah, I think the experience, like, one thing, I come from a food and beverage background as well, too. Like, and what I always thought was the most valuable part of the experience of what happened across the table, and the food and the drink are all just accessories to it. And that important moment across the table now is starting to happen as people who haven't seen each other face to face for years, or a year and a half, or months or whatever, are now finding the experience to be that much more meaningful. So I think when people are going out and making reservations and deciding to eat and build groups and community, it's way more important. There's way more value put into it. It's like it's a bigger investment, and you're starting to see that. And I think it's
intentional,
way
right?
more
When
intentional.
you think about where you want to go, as
Absolutely.
Re-experience, how you engage and are in present company.
Absolutely.
Company with other people. Yeah.
So I think that's important, and I think that restaurants and bars and people who are catering, ushering in those returns, realize the value of those transactions. Like, I think that you see proprietors and practitioners in that space are saying, like, you made a choice to come spend this very important time and this very significant time to you. It's almost like every day's a wedding, now. For the next few months.
Do you have weddings? Do you host a lot of weddings here, or
We do.
And when do you think that business sort of will pick up?
Well, we had one sneak in like I think last week or week before last. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
but very smaller one, but like
Yeah.
now the bigger ones, you're seeing the conversations happening now.
Yeah.
Because what people are really wary of is like having a wedding where you had a limited amount of people, because there's a lot of politics, and the right person don't get invited to your wedding, your marriage may not last. So now that those restrictions are lifted, now you're seeing people are just chomping. The people who are rescheduling, people who had to cancel and delay their love, are now like really back on it. So we're starting to see a lot of activity and interest around that. Coming down in the summer, but largely you're going to see the bulk of it happen in the fall.
In the fall.
Yeah.
I'm kind of weary of that just in general, the marriage thing.
Okay. Hey,
So
me too.
I feel your pain on that. But I think it's important though, because people think of like that as another milestone, right?
Yep.
Like the first
Yep.
wedding that you go to after
Yes.
the pandemic, it's that like you said, that experience that you have that again, like kind of is a mile marker for you, just because everybody wants to be out of this.
Yes.
Right? We all want to be out of this. And how have you been doing in terms of team members and getting vaccinated? How have those conversations been going?
I really approached that with a lot of anxiety. I thought that we were going to have a lot of resistance. To be quite frank, the history of medical racism in this country is real. It's palpable, and it's very connected to a lot of the communities that work here in the front line. And but I think people have realized the importance of community and collective safety, and are willing to kind of step into their personal health responsibilities and actually get the vaccine as a way of protecting people. You know, as a COVID survivor myself, I think, you know, the team here definitely realized that it is real and it impacts people. And we haven't had a lot of resistance. You know, I think, you know, you just had people who just wanted to get to it sooner, you know, and I think that's just important that we continue to support. I'm very excited about your program and project that you mentioned where you actually can bring it to here to increase accessibility. And I just feel, you know, a lot more assured.
Because I've actually come here to give blood before.
Yes.
You have a partnership with American Red Cross.
Yep.
And so I think people wanting to do it in a familiar place, too.
Yes.
Is important. So actually, I'm glad I got the link. If you go to vaccineexchange.dc.gov, that's how you sign up and show interest. So
Okay.
it'd be great for you guys to do it, and really not just for the people who work here, but also the community that utilizes Eaton DC.
Absolutely.
So we should definitely follow up on that.
Yes.
So I know Sabangale and Sean doesn't just make sure our heaters don't fall over. He's also been making sure a lot of people get vaccinated.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And I think, and we've talked about it too, because in terms of like the numbers of people that you get at events, you're not necessarily going to get thousands of people.
No.
Probably not even hundreds of people.
No.
But it's really like as we go through this shot by shot and really person by person, that's how we're going to like get to that number that I know President Biden's talked about, 70% by July 1st. We're making a push on it.
Yep.
So one question for you, and I don't know the answer to this, so the beauty of live TV. Work Chew. Is Eaton, D.C. a Work Chew location?
No.
We've
It
got
is not.
Sabangale.
That's okay.
Okay, Sabangale.
We'll
the
make
pitch
sure
right
you're
here.
connected.
Okay, yeah. And I'm sure that Neil mentioned that
Yeah.
already. So,
Yeah.
there might be a meeting coming up on my
Okay,
calendar
fantastic.
soon. But,
Okay, good.
yeah, we're very excited about, being a part of that return to the downtown business district.
Yeah.
And Eaton playing a big part of that. And I think a part of that is just, really being creative.
Absolutely. Work Chew, the two co-founders are definitely working with both the bids to, to support and work with employers, businesses like this place, as alternative work locations.
Yep.
On those off days where you're not necessarily going to be in the office.
Yep.
So yeah, creating interesting workspaces for folks.
We're very excited for that kind of
They
partnership.
can find success anywhere.
Yes.
Well, with Sabangale, I like that. That was a great pitch for it. And Sheldon, thanks for hosting us today.
Yeah.
Thanks for the work that you do every day. And we're going to definitely follow up with you about making sure that people can come to the Eaton sometime and get their vaccine as well.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks
so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you for your work.
So let's make sure that folks go to vaccineexchange.dc.gov. That is where you're going to be able to find the information about how your organization or you as an employer or maybe even a venue like Eaton DC, how you actually are able to host a vaccine clinic. And it's really important, too, that not just to find locations for vaccine clinic, but also to help us really find how we're going to invite people, right? So when we did the Faith in the Vaccine program, which Mayor Bowser launched early on in the vaccines process, it was really about not just finding that place to do the vaccine, but really finding that community of people who you can invite, who you could have that important conversation with. So make sure you go to vaccineexchange.dc.gov, and that's where you can find information and express interest about being a host site for a vaccine clinic. Sabangale, we're joined by a few other guests.
I love it. This is so much fun.
It's so much fun. Chef Tim Mott, you didn't have to come too far to join us today.
It was a long ride up the elevator.
Exactly. So I'm going to mention first American Sun because you're the executive chef for American Sun. But I also want to mention my favorite, which is Lucky Danger, which is, well, you'll tell us more about it in a second. And then also Andrew. Andrew is the vice president of Union Kitchen, so right down the street, and one of our participants in the program that Sabangale was just talking about. So Chef Tim Ma, let me start off with you, though. All right, tell everybody about what my favorite restaurant is.
So Lucky Danger is a product of the pandemic, but it's our version of a Chinese takeout, and it's actually, we took over Prather's on the Alley and just kind of converted it into this takeout form, which is actually, I heard you guys talking about Work Chew. Prather's was a Work Chew location.
Oh,
It was
wow.
fantastic.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we've been doing that for a little bit during the pandemic, and it's been amazingly successful for us.
All right, but you got to tell folks how to crack the code of Lucky Danger because you can't just it's almost 4:30. You can't actually go get it right now.
Yeah, reservations go live at 10. They tend to go pretty quickly. So we ask people to order pretty early on because typically during after 4, reservations get a little bit harder.
I love it. Well, it's been great. And Andrew, so you're right downtown. You guys are on K Street. I know you've got other locations at the convention center and beyond. So tell us what it's been like over the last few weeks as you see more activity picking up downtown.
Yeah, it's been.
I think we got you.
I'm good. Sorry. So it's been really exciting to see. It's been kind of a long year, and we've been excited to see our customers coming back. Our staff just loves seeing the regulars, people starting to come in every day for their cup of coffee, their lunch, kind of those conversations that I think we've all been kind of forgotten how much we missed those from a couple years ago. We're really excited to see those again.
And tell us about kind of your journey in 2020 and then how that sort of changed in 2021. What did you guys do with the locations, hours, things like that?
Yeah, it's been quite an experience because we also have our shared kitchen, the incubator up in Ivy City, where we have about 75 food and beverage small businesses that were operating out of there. So when the pandemic first started, we saw a lot of them really pivoting the way a lot of business had. It was great to see and be able to support them through our own stores as well to kind of provide the outlets, continue to kind of keep the lights on for everyone. And then we've been kind of adjusting our own locations throughout. I think like everyone, we staffed down pretty, unfortunately had to put a lot of people just on leave for a bit. And then really kind of through the fall, winter, and especially over the last kind of month or two, we've been really seeing everything come back. It's been great to kind of be able to see the stores lively again, those lunch rushes, as challenging as they all are. Sure, Tim, you run into this when it's a busy dinner and everything's going wrong. But those are the problems we want to be having, and it's great to be getting back to that.
And you all took COVID, excuse me, I almost put the words together, COVID protocols really seriously. I know in the opening days of the pandemic, going to Union Kitchen and seeing a requirement to wear gloves for everybody.
Yeah, that was really, fortunately we got kind of great guidance from CDC, also USDA because we're a USDA facility. And really we kind of extended kind of the high food safety standards we have in our kitchen. We kind of hold ourselves the same standard out in the stores. And we're just kind of seeing that was really what our staff wanted. The important thing for us was to keep our staff safe, our employees, because they're really critical to our business. And then right behind that, safety for our customers. That was kind of our most important priority. And fortunately, we just have a great team that was able to help us do all those things, whether it was find gloves or build the register guards when we needed those. It's really been just exciting to see our team come together.
And Chef, Andrew just talked about kind of going above and beyond in the protocols. I know we're only one weekend into reopening, but how do you see customers and your team members kind of responding to the loosening of the protocols? And what do they still want to see in place? What's that experience been like so far for you?
So we still require masks. We still have the QR codes. And so there are still, we're still, just a week in to the loosening of the restrictions. So it's been interesting, to say the least. Obviously, downtown is still a little bit depressed in comparison to the other parts of the city. So we don't see quite like what you see on like 14th or U or anything like that. But it has been nice, and we're seeing like levels come up very quickly. Obviously, when it's a nice weekend, like this weekend will probably be a very busy weekend. It's fun, and I think that's like kind of what's been the most amazing thing to see is that people are coming back out to have fun. And that's good for everybody, I think.
Yeah, and we were talking with Sheldon about people wanting to reconnect again. Andrew, you talked a little bit about how people want to see their regularly again. What's that like reconnecting and what conversations are they having about reconnecting and really about like where we are in the pandemic and their comfort level with kind of having those connections again? People don't know whether to shake hands or to hug. That's my question.
Yeah. So it's been interesting to see because we had a large subset of our regulars who kind of stayed with us, particularly for our locations up in Shaw and on Capitol Hill, which we're very grateful for, to see those kind of get back to more normal. But it's still all elbows, fist bumps is kind of where we are. Same as Tim, we're still requiring masks in our stores. And really, I think the biggest change that we were most excited to see was we took down our register guards, kind of that just barrier there of that plastic interface. We didn't realize how much of a kind of disconnect that had created. It was just challenging to kind of say hi, how are you, kind of really hear people around that. So it's been great to see those, but you also have a pretty good idea of who are your new regulars who haven't been downtown in 6 months, 8 months, and just they come back into society. I kind of think it's just like a lot of teenagers. It almost feels like middle school all over again.
They're peeking in, like, is it okay to come in?
Well, Simangwe, I want to bring you into the conversation. What do you want to hear from our restaurant community about what else we could be doing to support them?
I think I would love to hear more about the challenges that you're welcome. I think there are new dynamics with the reopen, right? As we're opening up and we're relaxing some of these restrictions, what are some of the new challenges that are being presented? And do we think that's going to last a long time? Or do we think this is just temporary? Or like, are you guys thinking that we'll continue to keep masks or not? Or, is there something that we should be considering as we think about what is going to happen long-term versus what's happening in the interim?
I think it's going to take like a lot of patience from like every level from like the employer, from the city, the employer to the guest. I think a lot of people see like, oh, well, they feel free to come back out. And so they want everything to be pre-pandemic. One of the biggest challenges, and this is something me and Andrew were talking about actually before we came out here, is just staffing. So like we may be able to seat all of you in the restaurant or at the bar or in the grocery store, but we may not have enough people yet to actually service the restaurant. And I think that's actually the biggest
Workforce.
Challenge. Yeah.
That sounds like you said workforce.
Yeah, so workforce, but also patience from the customer to understand that like we are pre-pandemic like open, but we are not pre-pandemic levels yet because we can't staff that. We can't service you reliably without the workforce. So I think it's asking for patience from every level to be like, okay, we've just gotten out of something that's once in a lifetime. So it might take more than a week, maybe a couple more weeks to get to those levels again.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of all want this, but we also want to be able to maintain our high standards for ourselves. Kind of the experience that we provided pre-pandemic is the one we want you to come back to. And same as Tim saying, to be able to maintain that across all of our stores, definitely the workforce challenges, but just in general, change is hard. So really kind of having just the patience, as Tim was saying, to do this in a way where employers can communicate to their staff, city can communicate to employers. Just those things I think is going to be really important for us all.
And so when you guys are thinking about workforce, so have you been able to bring people back or have they kind of moved on from it? And then when you're hiring up, is it people who are new to the food industry or so what's that been like in that kind of learning curve? Because you said a couple of weeks, it made me think like, are people new to the industry?
So yeah, we've seen a mix, right? There has certainly been an exodus from, especially the restaurant industry. Like even aside from the pandemic and all the social justice issues that we had around the country, our industry was having a reckoning as well. And so we did see a lot of people leave the industry, leave the city, to go like back to home or back to like out into Virginia or something like that, where it's a little bit more widespread. So that's certainly been a challenge to see, where are we going to get this workforce? And so really what's happening now, I think, is that we're getting people from other industries entering this workforce for the first time. And so there is this large learning curve that, hey, like we don't have these 20-year vets anymore. Now we have like whatever it is, these high schoolers or whoever it is, and we have to train them in an industry that is a skilled industry. It's not, it's not like this unskilled industry. There is some skill that every player has within the restaurant. And so that has been kind of the biggest challenge, is not having those old employees because they're somewhere else and having these new employees that we're training up.
And I just wonder too, like, are there skills that we should be thinking about how we kind of plus up our training? Simangwe used to be at the Department of Employment Services. Are there more trainings we should do on like safe serve and things like that, or what are those skills?
Just knowledge is power, right? So the more communication that we have, or like, one of the toughest things is that like everybody had to wear a different hat during the pandemic. And so even like keeping up with the regulations, or knowing like what is allowed, or even knowing like what resources are available to us. Like even when we're encountering like hard situations, it's always helpful to, you guys probably have thought about it where we're just reacting half the time now because just so many things have been thrown at us that, I just cook. I was like, now I got to know how to like diffuse situations. I'm not sure I'm the best person for that.
You know what? I would like to mention that currently, right now, on June 23rd, the Office of Talent and Client Services at the Department of Employment Services is doing a virtual hiring fair.
Okay.
And so employers can sign up to do interviews on June 23rd. And so I'm happy to make sure that we send out that information. So anyone who's listening, if you are looking to hire, you are a restaurant that's hiring, absolutely make sure that you sign up to be an employer so that you can begin interviewing. It will be a virtual hiring fair that the Office of Talent and Client Services is doing on the 23rd. So I'll make sure you guys get that information as well.
And I think we're going to work with the Restaurant Association
Absolutely.
to get that out. Okay, great.
Yep, we're all sharing that information. Yep.
So, Chef, I wanted to also mention another initiative that you've been part of, Chef Stopping AAPI Hate. Mayor Bowser talks about DC values all the time and really wanted us to make sure that we were doing all we could to support you on this effort. So tell us a little bit about it, and then tell us and the viewers what they could be doing to help as well.
Yeah, so the organization started actually before the Atlanta incident. And so originally it was just like a single dinner with 5 Asian American chefs, myself, Kevin Tian, Eric Brenner Yang, Peter Chang, and Juan Tang. So it was really just one dinner to raise money to donate to Stop AAPI Hate and Rise Justice Labs. Overnight, me and Kevin were like, let's make this bigger. So that one call or that one night became 45 chefs and 9 dinners overnight.
Wow.
And we're proud to say now we're in 4 cities total. So we're also in San Francisco, New York, and Detroit. And to the point that like now we were on the Today Show last week, not for cooking, which is which I think is even better, that we were on the Today Show for the social justice causes that we fight for. And I'd like to announce also that with the help of Mayor Bowser's grant that they provided at the very beginning of when we started the initiative, we are in application to become our own 501c3 so that this will become a persistent organization that will last beyond AAPI Heritage Month, and so that we fight for this throughout the entire year.
Fantastic.
Congratulations.
Fantastic. And for those watching, what's the best way to help? How can we find information about it too?
Go to the website chefstoppingaapihate.com, and you can find all the information there on how to purchase the dinners and what we're doing in the future.
And Andrew, you mentioned that you've got that incubator kitchen. How do folks who are interested in maybe starting a business? I know the pandemic has given us all time to reflect on what we really want to be doing with our time. And so how would folks kind of engage with you on that?
Yeah, if you go to our website, we've kind of got our links to our accelerator team who can set you up with that. But it's a really exciting opportunity. In about 12 weeks, we can go from idea to product on the shelf. So maybe you're thinking about a frozen dinner or some other innovative beverage, or something you're thinking about. And, we've got the kitchen and the stores. So sign on up.
I was going to try to actually emulate some Chinese food recipes that I found. They came in little cartons. You just can't get it after like noon, though. So I'm just making fun of Chef Ma, because if you are a fan of Lucky Danger like I am, you know that you have to get it in at 10 a.m., get your reservation in at 10 a.m., or you miss it. So I just want to thank Chef Tim Ma, Andrew, thank you both for joining us. And really just keep letting us know. Like you said, it was good to hear that we've got to just keep getting that information out. And then I think something Sumangal and I definitely want to work with you on is how we make sure DC residents are the ones who seek these opportunities and really seek these opportunities. So I think if you had a parting word for those who are interested in working in the industry, food service industry, why do you think it's a good time to enter it?
Because we need the help. I feel like I'm being held for ransom or something. Like, we need the help. And it's a fun industry, obviously. Like, I gave up a very nice other career to come into cooking or to come into the restaurant industry. And so hopefully those that have not worked in it before, I always say that like everybody should work in the restaurant industry, because that's really where you see how to treat other people throughout your life, because that's just, hospitality is that part of it.
Well, after starting with Help Me, that was a really nice way. Andrew?
Yeah, I would say that we're really invested a lot in being able to train people. So don't be too intimidated by maybe you don't have the right skills. It's less about do you have that now and more do you have the right mindset. I think that there's really an openness to and a willingness kind of those in the industry to kind of put the resources towards training people up and also just kind of creating positions that more of a path towards the higher skilled stuff. So really don't be afraid. It's it's a brave new world out there, and we're pretty excited to get going again.
Absolutely. Well, Chef, Andrew, thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be in touch about the hiring fair on June 23rd. Yep. Great.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you all. So just really want to make sure that we're continuing to get the information out. So on Thursday, Mayor Bowser is going to be unveiling her 2022 budget. So this is an opportunity for you to understand all the priorities in the budget. She'll be broadcasting on Thursday morning at 11 a.m. And that's really, again, where she sets kind of the blueprint for where we'll go over not just the next year, but the next several years. It's also where she'll show how she'll invest the funds that we actually got through the American Rescue Plan and and the funds that made us whole from the CARES Act. So make sure that you tune in on Thursday at 11 a.m. And we will have within that budget, I don't want to get ahead of the mayor, but we've already announced a $50 million investment in Northeast Heights. That is to attract a new supermarket to the intersection of Minnesota and Benning Road. We also talked just yesterday about a $400 million investment, a historic $400 million investment in the Housing Production Trust Fund. And that allows us to actually make sure that we address not just building affordable housing units, but housing affordability across all 8 wards. And so tune in on Thursday at 11 a.m. And with that, I want to bring in a couple more panelists. And Sabangwe, we're almost running out of room up here.
I know.
Do
I need to move?
Exactly. We're really excited to have Graham McLaughlin, the head of social responsibility for Optum. Sheila Dean Brooks, who is the Dr. Sheila Dean Brooks, who's the founder and president of SRB Communications, and Ajay Madan, who is the COO of OST. I always get this global, OST, global, right? Global. And so we wanted to talk about how you all are approaching return to the office. So Sabangwe and I had this conversation about when we're thinking about these few weeks of May and how we would invite folks back to the office. It wasn't really a return to work because people have been working throughout the pandemic and people have actually been working downtown. And so we owe a debt of gratitude to those who've been keeping our buildings safe, keeping them clean, and making sure that protocols were in place. But now we want others to come back as well. We'll just wait for that flyover to happen. We want others to come back as well, maybe not by helicopter, but by Metro and all of our great transit options. So Graham, how have you thought about sort of return to the office? And tell us about the experience for your team.
Yeah, well, first, I wish I could return to the office here. What a beautiful facility. Absolutely. So thanks to the Eaton. We're right down the street from there. And as a healthcare organization, so Optum is part of United Health Group. And so as a healthcare organization, we know that communities thriving is really part of health. And so part of us thinking about how do we really support downtown and DC thriving as a whole? And so we want to keep our employees safe. We have an app to ensure that our epidemiologists can track our team members. We have 24/7 mental health support by our trained counselors, which is actually open to the general public. We have a mental health app for our own team members and a lot of supports to keep people healthy. But we really want people to be able to have those hallway conversations, those supports, that collaboration. And we want to be able to go downtown and eat lunch at Shook and Kava and things like that. And so just being able to kind of have that energy, both within our own 4 walls, but also in the downtown corridor is really important to us as a citizen of the city.
Absolutely. And so for district government, our experience was that we were able to, because we are a direct service provider, so we were able to really drop down to just under 40% of our workforce that was coming in day to day, and the rest was teleworking. So for Dr. Sheila Dean Brooks, tell us about for SRB Communications. How do you did you approach it throughout the pandemic? Did everyone go to telework? Did you have people coming in? What was your approach to it?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm very pleased that we are returning to work next Tuesday on June 1st. My staff is a staff of 15, and how we approached the telework was everybody went home. We needed to keep everybody safe. We understood that the mayor was out there in front of this issue. We wanted to continue to support the mayor. We wanted to continue to support the city council and to support what was going on during the pandemic and keeping all of our employees safe. So we went to telework. We went to the virtual meetings, more meetings, of course, within the team to do what they needed to do. But as we look at returning, it is so important that economic uncertainty that has prevailed for us for about 15 months, it's important that we do come back to work because we want to support all that's going on in the district, creating new jobs, bringing people back to work. So coming back to work, we will come back in with 4 days on and remote Fridays for 6 months of the year. And then we will then go to winter to spring for 6 months, 3 days in the office and 2 days out of the office. All 15 employees must be fully vaccinated to return to work.
Fantastic. And so did you have telework previously?
We did not have telework previously, and previously, me being the old school CEO, telework was not even in the business growth plan.
I understand.
But now I understand.
Okay. Ajay, you were talking about how you actually, this is like your second event of the day, probably your third or fourth, really. But so you've been out meeting with people, you've been connecting with them. How have you kind of approached this return to the office for your team, and how do you approach it? Because you yourself are out there all the time, right? Not everybody's used to it. So how have you had those conversations with team members?
Well, it's difficult because we have 2,000 people under management in 13 states. Wow. And we have customers that are very dependent on our services. We work in classified facilities, and we had to de-densify, so we went to shift work. And then we have the complete opposite, where people can remote. And so we have this barbell culture. And we begun engaging our employees. What do they think about the future? We've been having conversations with them. We've been talking to them about vaccinations. And the conversations about vaccinations haven't just been about, well, this is like an auto insurance policy. It's a good thing to have. I am of Indian descent, and you see what's going on in India. And we are talking to the staff about, this mRNA technology is actually resilient about things that we may be facing into the future. And so we're trying to push more and more vaccinations so as people get back into our office, they actually feel pretty safe. For us, I think we have a strange challenge, and I'm a little bit like you. I'm kind of old school, where it was all retail interactions. And my thinking was, if you want to build a culture and you want to glue people in, that's really important to have retail interactions. And I was thinking about it as a remote employee, not as an executive. And I was thinking to myself, gee, how do I get noticed? How do I make sure I avail myself of these promotions and a path into the future? And so we are engaging with our staff on how to best do that.
And for Graham, sorry, did you have something?
No, the only thing I wanted to say is it was very difficult for us as a communications company.
Yep.
We are storytellers. We create and we execute campaigns for our clients. And in doing that, we have to ideate. We have to be connected in rooms where we can have, storyboards and whiteboards and flip charts and just have those creative juices going. So that too was a challenge for us.
No, absolutely. And when you're doing that, actually, I have a follow-up question, because I kind of like to think of ideas around communications every once in a while. I see Jackie laughing off to the side there. But sometimes it actually, comes to you sort of after hours and things like that. And then really not having the time to be in person to see their reaction when you bring them the idea. When you actually sort of like, I came up with this, what do you think? Doing it over a text message
text message, virtual mail. It really doesn't capture the essence of the story that you're trying to tell. So we had to really listen to our clients more to figure out what is it, what kind of campaign is it that you want, how can we do that? But we have been truly, truly blessed in all of this because out of this pandemic came more work. We actually moved into a new sector of building brand awareness for public health campaigns with the CDC Foundation at Howard University.
Wow. And so Graham, being in the healthcare space, so how do you have that conversation about vaccine or about the protocols that you'll have in place when you return to the office? How do you have that conversation with your team members?
Yeah, well, we want everyone to be safe. We recommend that everyone is vaccinated. We have many, many clinicians, doctors, et cetera, on staff who have been telling all of our team members in weekly updates and then monthly town halls why the vaccine is safe and giving some answers. But it's not mandated. We are aligning with CDC and in DC, the mayor's guidance. So actually next week, we will not be enforcing masks in our workplace environment, but we are encouraging everyone to wear masks. Everyone has to use the app. Our epidemiologists do follow up, et cetera. So it's a personal choice, but certainly something that is encouraged to ensure that everyone is safe because it is a choice that impacts others as well.
I see Samangla shaking her head, and really, I think for us, I think there's a culture of sort of like being a team, and it's a little bit hard to do that when you're remote, although Samangla is excellent at keeping the team together. So how do you all do that? How do you how have you sort of navigated this? And when you're going to be 4 days a week and 1 day and then 3 and 2, how do you keep that sort of team mentality together?
Well, for us, I'm not in the day-to-day. I work on the business and not in the business. My second in command, my vice president, manages the account team that's working with our clients day to day. They have many more meetings than they did before. They have a daily outcomes huddle first thing in the morning to review all the clients' works, expectations, deliverables for that day, that week. I come in as a strategist, and I'm the rainmaker and closer. So I bring in all the business, and then when I need them, I pull them. I pull them into. Okay, thank you so much. But it is going to be just as tough as it has been in the past. Right. I think we have to be a little bit more organized. A little bit more visionary in how we do things, a little bit more project management. We've added a couple of other employees who will work with the account team to assist and certainly work with me as a chief of staff to get what I need to get done.
Okay.
I would also say redefining the word team. So I know you asked it about internal teams. But I think as a business, we've been thinking a lot about, like, what does it mean to be a citizen of DC? What's it mean to be a citizen of the U.S., global citizen, et cetera, when we're all facing all of these challenges, health-wise, economics, et cetera. So United Healthcare, our partner organization, our sister company, has already provided over $400,000 in grants to provide COVID testing, to provide vaccines, nutrition support, et cetera. We'll deploy over $1 million by the end of the year. And I only give the grants as an example of tangible impact, but I've seen a real hunger from our team members to think about, how do I serve the city during this really challenging time? And I think for all businesses, and certainly we've been thinking about it a lot, is what does it mean to be kind of part of the team in terms of in DC, and how do you support when a lot of people are hurting right now? And I think you have this kind of responsibility as a business to say we're part of this and we benefit from it, and so how do we take action to support as well? So I think our team members have felt a lot of purpose on feeling like our team is the city.
I see Ajay shaking his head too on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm also approaching it a little bit differently because I'm not really sure what people are thinking. They say certain things, but I don't really know what we're feeling, what their constructs are. And so I am having a lot of lunches these days with groups. Yep. And I'm using that as the way to kind of reconnect on a more human level with the people that report to me and then the line below me. And then I'm going to take their individual guidance, and it may be different for each one of the groups, but I'm going to go out to different locations to talk to people, and I'm going to figure out if there's something that I can do that's tailored to that environment so that customer is not affected, that staff is energized, and most importantly, that they're getting out, they're socializing, they're experiencing life the way we used to experience. So I don't have a single approach. I think that we're going to have a list of things that we'll do, and we will tailor it to each one of the areas.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to everything that I think all three of you have said, it sounds like it's redefining what it means to connect and connect as a team, and not ignoring what's happening outside of, you know, that office space and that 9 to 5, if you will, you know, and bringing all of that in, using that energy to pivot and say, this is how we become light. This is how we become energy. This is how we are now impacting and driving change in the work that we're doing. And so redefining what does it mean to be an employee and delivering day in and day out, but having a different kind of connection. So teamwork means something a lot different now when you begin to bring in all of the other things that are happening outside. And so really seeing employees and people as people, you know, and not as folks that are just charged to do work, you know, but that they are human. And so bringing that into the work environment, I think, strengthens the culture and output, obviously. But then, obviously, there is more buy-in, you know, in your team. You have a stronger unit. That makes any sense, yeah.
Yeah, and just building on your point, there has been a lot of humanity seen, whether it's children, dogs, whatever it would be, in the background on conference calls. And there's been a lot of humanity in thinking about all of the things that have happened over the past year. I mean, America, especially on today, the anniversary of George Floyd's murder, going through the racial reckoning that it needed, thinking about the double pandemic and the disparities that we're seeing. And as an organization with 350,000 people across the globe and much different income levels for, you know, everyone in our organization, even thinking about how do we support through our United Cares program the 50,000 of our staff who got COVID, and, you know, many who passed away or who had relatives pass away, and thinking about how do we push for racial equity and racial justice as a powerful organization in the world. And, you know, I think those aspects of humanity, while we've been separated but together on conference calls, et cetera, are something all of us are really grappling with as we come back to the office and as we come back to real life or normal life, to think about how these things that are so unacceptable do we continue to work towards and sort of use this as a catalyst for change. And I think just your point about seeing that humanity, I think as an organization, we're really trying to think about how do we keep that level of empathy and focus.
Absolutely, yeah, that more four-dimensional kind of approach to employees versus, you know, this two-dimensional, this is what, you know, one person, this is what they do, but looking beyond that and everything that they bring to the plate and their experiences as well as you're working day to day. So I think that's really valuable. So defining what that connection means as you talk about teamwork.
And I also think that we have to certainly be compassionate toward all of those other smaller business owners and other business owners that will be out of business or that are already out of business. I think that what we're finding when we think about teamwork is that we are contributing more to those kinds of funds to assist some of those small business owners to get back on their feet. We are extending our reach to see what other resources that we can help provide for them because we all suffered in some aspect, particularly in those other months. I know we did. And what I always say to people is I had to turn that pain into purpose. And when I did that, that's when I could really concentrate on what we needed to do to grow the business and to return to work. But when we look out here and we see the mayor and the city council and so many other executives and representatives that are working with us to continue to support those businesses, it certainly makes it a whole lot better and makes us feel better to know that this economy is going to turn around. So we stand in support of all of that.
Well, and it struck me too that as you all were speaking, I was thinking about like how the mayor has said time and again that we're all in this together, but that doesn't end when we come out of the pandemic. And I've actually been really impressed by how team members in DC government have innovated throughout the pandemic, and that spirit of like innovation and cooperation. How do we help those carry on beyond the pandemic? And so I don't know, Ajay, if you have thought about how you kind of take this almost camaraderie that folks have had and make sure that it lasts beyond the pandemic.
It's funny that you say that. One of the things I wanted to mention that even in several meetings I haven't mentioned to you, you especially had an optimism and positivity even in the darkest days. And you set a certain tone for businesses, and that was very, very, very important. And that helped us have internal conversations about what is the esprit de corps. And given that the shape of our business is changing, given our workforce is changing, their work habits, the engagement, etc., we are working through, we used to work side by side. We used to have technology tools for some remote. We never integrated the two. And so we are working on that right now. And John, to your point, we say to ourselves, well, why didn't we do that before? Why did it take a crisis for us to actually begin doing this? And so you're absolutely right. How do we take those good practices? How do we institutionalize them? And then how do we think forward a little bit more? We're going through that process.
And for you all, how do you think you kind of carry on that camaraderie? You've talked a lot about sense of community. How do you sort of make sure that stays? Yeah, please.
I think that we make the sense of community stay within us is that we continue to, now that we're coming back, look for those opportunities to get involved and to stay involved, particularly with the organizations that we've been involved in that have been so virtual. How can we show up and be a part of something bigger? For example, we are just really excited today. We're in the office today, just the leadership team. And we decided to come to the office to do our leadership retreat that we do, just the 5 of us, the top folks in the business, so we could be there together. We could map out the vision. We could look at the future, forward thinking, and talk about some of the community opportunities that we've had, but that we can now go back and do. I know that there have been so many losses, and certainly in my family regarding COVID over the last year, and some of my employees' families. And then we're looking at those other community organizations that we certainly can give back to. And those things are important.
Yeah, and just building on that, I live in Ward 7, and my neighbors are experiencing the pandemic, I would say, very differently than my colleagues downtown. And so I think it's a little bit of all of the above, right? Like I mentioned, really excited to have lunch at Shook, which is right next to our office. And, many of us are excited about the downtown and what it has to offer and being back and having our gym at work and things like that. And going back to some of my comments earlier, both as a company and I think as many individuals, also knowing that everything's not perfect, as you all have said afterwards. And so what does it mean to come together as an office and think about, like, how do we serve outside of work? And, why we're making grants to, I mentioned this before, but like Fresh Food Factory, which is Ward 8, not 7, but to support, healthy nutrition, and why we're working with 1863 Ventures to support entrepreneurs of color as they kind of build back from the pandemic and some of the double impact that they've had. And so, again, just going back to this idea of, what I think it means to keep that going is to share this sense of purpose, which both of you, have talked to, and really feel like if we are going to learn something from this, and if we are going to use this as a catalyst, then how do we make this a city for all? And, many of the things you and the mayor have talked about with pathways to the middle class and other things for really every single person in the city.
Yeah, I think, to me, what I thought I heard from both of you guys is being a consistent and intentional civic a citizen, if you will, right? And so I heard like there has to be some sort of intentionality and consistently being intentional about how you do what you do, regardless of what your company is doing, but how do we continue to engage in the way that is most meaningful?
And so we're out of time. We're over time, but I'm going to go on just for one more question. It's going to be quick. I promise. I see the team looking. But a lot of folks have actually lost their jobs over the course of the pandemic, but now is a good time to start really, really getting serious about that job search. I see you guys shaking your heads. What's your best advice to somebody who's starting that job search right now? Ajay, you want to start us off?
Well, for those folks that are with us, please stay with us because you are talented people. And as we continue to grow, we need to connect with a population that is hungry, that has fire in the belly, and we need to make investments in them. And I know that Antoine Ford over at the WIC is very passionate about this, and he and I have talked a lot about certifications. My view is similar to his. It goes beyond certifications. If you come with our company, it's beyond the certification. We will pay for your college, and we would want you to get some type of clearance because we're not thinking short term, we're thinking very long term. So that's our approach.
What I would say to those looking for work, and particularly young people, is to be vigilant. You need to stay focused, and most importantly, keep learning. I'm a lifelong learner. It's never too late to learn another skill set, and this is the time now to do that while you are looking for that position.
I fear your staff's wrath, so I'll let you just go on.
You're closer to them. I have a little buffer here with the table. But no, I think the other thing, too, I would say, just to add on to that, is some of the best advice I got was when you go into a job interview, don't just tell people what you've done. Tell them what you could do for them, right? Tell the employer what you could do for them, and I think that's important. Maybe we'll have a whole session on this about coaching folks through getting ready for that job interview, because a lot of people will be going out to do it soon. So with that, you mentioned Antoine Ford. He's actually been working not just with the WIC, the Workforce Investment Council, but also with the Federal City Council, and try to talk to our employers about how they get engaged. So the Federal City Council is working on how we rethink work, not just for how we rethink the office, but how people re-enter the workforce. So we're really excited for them to take part in that work as well. And so we'll ask you to reach out to the Federal City Council for that. But then also, they've created a Return to the Office pledge, and they've had over 150 companies sign up. And you can sign up too, and it really brings you into the conversation about how you'll actually bring the team back into the office. So with that, I want to thank all of our guests today, all of our panelists, Eaton DC for hosting us. And we talked a little bit, I know that Graham mentioned Pathways to the Middle Class. On Thursday, Mayor Bowser is going to talk again about how we give all Washingtonians a fair shot. At 11 a.m., she's going to be presenting her budget, which is her investment in residents and our businesses as well. So with that, we just encourage you to stay safe. Check out coronavirus.dc.gov for all the latest and how you can get your team members and yourself vaccinated. In the meantime, be safe, and we'll see you next week where we'll talk more about that budget that Mayor Bowser unveils on Thursday. Thank you, and stay safe.